considering last Saturday. Is it audible, Mamata?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Very good. Okay. I just wanted to check because sometime back the volume was not all right. We were considering the progress of man after death. The progress of man after death depends on the spirit soul, not on body and the astral soul. So this is the division of the human being as body, astral soul and spirit is the division which the Greeks are very familiar with, and a lot of times a lot of people have borrowed that concept. So this is being conveyed now. The progress of man after death depends on the spiritual soul and not on body and the astral soul. That's well taken. Personality, which these two are related to. What is those two related to personality? Body and the astral soul cannot have in them the immortal essence. So immortality is not with these two, the physical body and the astral sense or astral soul. Astral body and the physical body, they do not have anything immortal about it. And so, whereas the spirit soul is immortal and eternal per se. This is one statement which she made. And then, talking about criminals. In case of criminals who are beyond redemption, people who are beyond redemption means people who are perhaps incorrigible, people who have gone too far ahead. So those people, in case of criminals who are beyond redemption, when the shining silver cord or thread, which is linked with the spirit soul, the physical body and the spirit soul is connected with a silver cord. So if that is from the time of birth of the child, that connection is there. So if that child is born, it is born with this connection. The silver cord is existing between the physical body and the soul also. But it's not seen, it's not visible. So she says, when this link is violently snapped, when this connection is violently snapped, and the disembodied entity is left to share the fate of a lower animal. So the bodies which are left because the soul escapes from the body, and the person takes the birth of a person who is having lower animal propensities. So that's how he has to be understood. The same thing happens even to those who end their lives by committing suicide, because you are snapping the connection on your own just like that, intentionally. So that is something which we should note, and we should avoid this second thing which we talked about. This too gradually dissolves into ether. What is that which too gradually dissolves into ether? Is that lower personality which comes into being. Over a period of time it grows and it evolves, and then it gradually dissolves into ether, and the individuality gets annihilated. Again, the individuality gets annihilated. At this stage, the unit of spirit remains as a conscious being. The personality is getting annihilated or getting destroyed, so to say, but the spirit remains. So this stage, the unit of spirit remains as a conscious being. This spirit becomes a planetary spirit. This is what the book says. This is what those philosophers believe. There was a set of philosophers who believed in this theory, and we have to understand clearly that man's body is related to the personality, cannot attain immortality. This is what is conveyed in theosophy also. We have to understand clearly that man's bodies, physical, astral, lower mental, etc., the etheric double, they are related to the personality. They cannot attain immortality. Terrestrial experience, the essence of that experience is retained by the spirit in Devchan. Right. Actually, not Devchan, it is retained in the causal body, which is actually positioned between the Buddhic plane and the highest division of the Devchan. Higher plane also has 7 subdivisions. So the top subdivision the seventh, the top one, and the buddhic in between, that causal body gets the place to build itself. So that's how terrestrial experience, the essence is retained with the spirit in Devchan, but terrestrial identity will not be retained. So the experience is retained, the identity is not retained, is what the book is saying. Spirit will not retain Mr. Smith's name. This is an example. Spirit will not retain Mr. Smith's name, but experiences of Mr. Smith are retained. So when there is a sudden snapping of the silver cord, the terrestrial experience also will get destroyed. I'm reading this only for the sake of understanding it clearly. What happens to a person who suddenly departs? So whatever normal death takes place, there is a experience which is gathered, the essence of experience is deposited in causal and all that. But if someone dies like that, suddenly the snapping of the silver cord takes place, then even the terrestrial experience also will not get registered. That experience also will get destroyed. Normally, what did he say? Terrestrial identity will not be retained in an ordinary course of death. Terrestrial identity will not be retained, but experience will be retained in the normal case of a human being who is passing off naturally. But unnatural death or sudden snapping of the silver cord, even the terrestrial experience also will not be registered, it will get destroyed. So when the spirit is getting de-linked with an unworthy vehicle, when the spirit is getting de-linked with an unworthy vehicle, this is what happens. So this is what we need to remember as far as the last class is concerned. It is important, so I thought I should cover it once more just for the sake of remembrance. Especially those points which are related to sudden snapping of the silver cord, that is relevant. Rest of it is already known to us because we are students of theosophy. Right. HPB says now, she continues, she goes on to the Christians. So Christian fathers or the clergymen like Origen, Origen, Synesius, Sinesis, they're all names of the people who are working as clergymen or fathers, Christian fathers, and few others. They say, what do they say? Spirit, which is the divine portion of the soul, was pre-existing and enjoyed eternity. This is what they believed. Though they were Christians, a lot of people, they do not believe in all this after-death experiences and all that and whatever. The body resurrects is what they feel. They don't talk about spirit. HPB says the Christian fathers like Origen, Synesius and few others, they say the spirit, which is the divine portion of the soul, was pre-existing. It was there even before this man took birth. That's what it means. Was pre-existing and enjoyed eternity. It was always there. So this is their belief. Whether man lived like an animal or a pure man, they were opining that individuality of that person will always exist. See, this is the difference. What did theosophy say or what the Greeks said was one thing, that the personality will perish. The bodies will not get retained. Bodies will get destroyed. But what does the people say? The Christians say? They say the spirit is always there. It is eternal, all right. But then they talk about the personality or the individuality and whether the man was living like an animal or a pure man, man with pure intentions. Whatever may be his nature, they were saying, the Christian fathers were saying, the individuality of that person will always exist. That means the bodies in their finer form or whatever form, they would exist. So that is their belief. Individuality of that person will always exist. Whatever may be his life, that was already said, he lived like an animal or like a pure man, whatever may be his life, he will be exonerated from all his sins. This is another belief of Christians. And when I'm saying Christians, I'm not running them down, but these are all the beliefs they continue to be having even today. So we are not finding fault with it. That's their belief. They have to move out of it if they have to think in terms of somebody in your place cannot suffer or face the punishment. That is what they believe. They believe somebody else, vicarious. They say vicarious punishment is possible. That means Christ has suffered for our sake. So I can do anything what I like, but Christ will take the punishment. This is what they believe. So that's what is being conveyed here. Christian fathers, they said spirit is pre-existing, eternal, it enjoys eternity. So whether man lived like an animal or a pure man, they were of the opinion that individuality of that person, the personality of that person will always exist along with the spirit, pre-existing spirit. Pre-existing spirit has nothing to do with the bodies is what they feel. Right. Whatever may be his life, like he led a life of an animal nature or a pure intentioned life, whatever may be his life, he will be exonerated from all his sins. So if he has committed sins, all his sins will be exonerated. That's the Christian belief. HBB says this theory that all his sins will be exonerated is a theory which is pernicious. Pernicious means harmful, subtly harmful. It is a subtle way of saying this is not the way actually one should believe. If he has done something wrong, he should get punished. Is the general belief of the Greeks as well as a lot of other people like Hermes and others. But Christians believe his personality is also existing, and then the sins of this person gets exonerated. And HBB says that this theory is a pernicious theory. Pernicious, this word means subtly harmful. Subtle harmful. So it is harmful, all right. It is harmful in its consequences, as those people believe that for all the sins committed, someone else like Jesus Christ will suffer, and vicarious atonement of sins will take place. This is their belief. So she says, HBB says, this theory is a pernicious one. I'm sure you know this word. I'm just not repeating the spelling of this. This theory is a pernicious one. That means subtly harmful in its consequences, as those people believed that for all sins committed, someone else like Jesus Christ will suffer and vicarious atonement of sins will take place. This is their belief, Christians' belief. Then, no human prayer or blood of another will not save an individual from his sins. This is what HBB is saying. No human prayer or blood of another will not save an individual from his sins. I'm just saying, I don't mean to hurt anyone. I don't know whether someone of you have closely followed the Sankalpa as it is being recited when the body is about to be taken away for cremation. So that man cannot hear after all. He has become Pretatma. It is how he gets addressed after that. But then they say, if knowingly you have done something, unknowingly you have done something, all these ceremonies which we are doing, you will get exonerated. Even that sort of a belief, human prayer, also will not relieve the person who has committed sins. This is something which is important to be noted. The Hindu system also, Sanatana Dharma also provides for this. And they believe the human prayer will relieve the person of the sins. Or chanting Garuda Purana on the 12th day will make his journey from the astral plane easy. If chanting by living people can make the dead man's journey in the astral plane or the astral body, leaving the astral body and all that easy, it will be a thing which a lot of people will welcome it. But then it doesn't happen that way. No human prayer or blood of another will not save an individual from his sins. The individual may pay, actually he will pay, but this is the sentence. The individual may pay for the misdeeds as a punishment given by the law implementing authorities. The individual may pay for the misdeeds as a punishment given by the law implementing authorities. Also, the individual has to face the consequences of his misdeeds, not in hell, but in the next life. This is something which we again need to understand. A lot of people have been told that there is one place called hell, and that place is full of various games where man gets punished. So there are so many instruments there which would be used to punish the individual or the person who is living at that point of time, the astral. So the individual may pay for the misdeeds as a punishment given by the law implementing authorities. Actually, it is all recorded all right. The Lipikas record all the things which are there. One need not sit there and record. Actually, when we do it, it gets recorded. You must have read from that. A child which is born, the impression of that is carried into the universe. Similarly, anything which we do, even a thought which we have projected, even a dirty look which we have given, all these things will get recorded elsewhere. So this is the Akashic records, and so this is how the record is maintained. So the individual will pay, I'm changing. The individual may pay, individual will pay for misdeeds as a punishment given by the law implementing authorities. It's not somebody like the police authorities who are living or anything like that. They are not the people. But the book says like this, the law implementing authorities. This is how the description is given. But what we need to understand is the individual has to face the consequences of his misdeeds. How will he face? This is more acceptable. Not in hell, but in the next life. The next life, that portion of what misdeeds I have done will get attached to my body which is trying to come down and take a birth. And then at that point of time, all these misdeeds also will form part of my karma. And then I need to go through and face all the consequences in the next life. So this is what it means. So, the Christian theory, the spirit is pre-existing and enjoys eternity is one thing. And whether man lived like an animal or a pure man with pure intentions, they were saying the individuality of that person always will remain, it will exist. And that is not the case. That's what Theosophy says, the bodies will fall away. But the Christians believe that the bodies or the individuality or the personality will always exist along with the spirit which is pre-existing even before this gentleman came into life. So that is what they say. Whatever may be his life, he will be exonerated from all his sins. This is another belief. So HVB says this theory is pernicious, harmful, subtly harmful in its consequences, as those people believe that for all sins committed by one, someone else like Jesus Christ will suffer and vicarious atonement of sins will take place. So this is the belief, but it doesn't happen that way. No human prayer or blood of another will not save an individual. Maybe there is some other system where blood is offered of an animal or something like that. So they say no human prayer or blood of another will not save an individual. The individual may pay, the individual will pay for the misdeeds as a punishment given by the law implementing authorities. Also, the individual has to face the consequences of his misdeeds, not in hell, but in the next life. The only way that person during the terrestrial earthly life should get linked firmly to God. This is the only way that person during the terrestrial earthly life should get linked firmly to God, the immortal spirit, is by leading the right kind of life. So this is the only way that a person during the terrestrial earthly life should get linked firmly to God, the immortal spirit, is by leading the right kind of life. Then she moves to Pythagoras. Pythagoras, Plato, the whole of Alexandrian school, the Greek school, they believe the individual soul has come from the universal soul. So she is examining the various theories, various philosophies held or propagated by the Christianity, by the Greeks, by other school of philosophers whom we consider the five philosophers and all that. So now she is talking about the Greek, Pythagoras and Plato. The whole of Alexandrian school, they believe the individual soul has come from the universal soul. Even HVP talks about the relationship of the individual soul with the universal soul in her third fundamental proposition, which she gives in the secret doctrine. So she says there is a link between the individual soul and the universal soul. The individual soul has to perfect itself by coming again and again, taking birth, taking another incarnation, and ironing out all those deficiencies and become perfect. When it becomes perfect, when the obligatory journey is over, then this particular individual soul will be part of the universal soul. That is what the third fundamental proposition of the secret doctrine given by H.P. Blavatsky talks about. So Pythagoras, Plato, the whole of Alexandrian school, they believe the individual soul has come from the universal soul. So far so good. Or it is also called the world soul. Universe is much better term, but this is also given, the world soul. This world soul, as per their teachings, this world soul, W-O-R-L-D, Prapancha, this world soul, as per their teachings, was ether. The spelling of ether is A-E-T-H-E-R. There is an ether which is just above the, maybe very close to Earth, where all these waves get deposited and they are communicated through another antenna or another receiver, through radio to television and all that. There is one ether. Above that is the permanent ether, which is spelled A-E-T-H-E-R. So the world soul, as per their teachings, as per the teachings of the Alexandrian school, was ether, A-E-T-H-E-R, which can only be perceived by an inner sight. So even ether, the ordinary ether which we're talking about, we can perhaps say the waves are there, ether waves are there, the waves which are put into the ether, they travel and all that, perhaps they can visualize it or they can measure it in some instrument or something like that. But this world soul, as per the Alexandrian school teachings, was ether which can only be perceived by an inner sight, not visibly seen by the naked eye. So this is only possible, to be perception is possible by an inner sight, not soul. So the world soul, as per the Alexandrian school's teachings, was ether, the spelling of which is A-E-T-H-E-R, the superior variety of ether, which can only be perceived by an inner sight. Physical eyesight cannot see it, as it is matter of very, very fine nature. So this is well taken. When it is not inner sight, when it is mentioned inner sight, we very clearly know that our sight, our eyes cannot see it. But nevertheless, it has been mentioned. The physical eyesight cannot see it, as it is a matter of a very fine nature. So it is described, number of times we've come across this particular expression. This has been described as anima mundi, A-N-I-M-A-M-U-N-D-I. We have talked about this number of times. So this is the world soul or anima mundi. Right. So what the Pythagorean and Platonian or Alexandrian school talked about is they believe the individual soul is connected to or has got relationship with universal soul. In fact, individual soul, the origin of that is from the universal soul. That is what they believed. It comes from, individual soul comes from the universal soul or the world soul. The world soul, as per the Alexandrian teachings, was ether, A-E-T-H-E-R, which can only be perceived by an inner sight. So physical eyesight or physical eyes cannot see that ether, as it is a matter of very fine nature. So it is also described as anima mundi. So anima mundi is actually a Greek term, it means. So anima mundi is the Greek term which describes the world soul. And it is the objective emanation of the unseen or unseeable universal spirit. What is this anima mundi is? It is the objective emanation of the unseen or unseeable universal spirit. Objective, it says. Objective, our eyes may not be able to see it, but then if somebody has got the ability to perceive, he can perceive and understand what it is. So it is called, however, it is called the objective emanation of the unseen or unseeable universal spirit. It's part of the universal spirit, and it is unseeable, all right, and unseen, all right, but it is an emanation of the objective type. Objective is I can actually see, but I don't see with these eyes, but there should be a separate eyesight for it, which is the inner sight. Maybe that would allow us to see that anima mundi. Okay. Human soul is existing as a distinct entity. This is the belief, or this is the philosophy put forward by the Greeks. Human soul is existing as a distinct entity, as a separate entity due to individualization. Due to individualization. Why are they talking about individualization? Because till such time the individualization takes place, that the human soul is formed. Prior to that, the animals, the trees, the minerals, all those kingdoms had only a group soul. A group soul. So, from the group soul, the individual soul is an improvement. So, human soul is existing as a distinct, separate entity due to individualization. So, individualization has taken place, and that spark which got divided from the universal, it became a unit of consciousness by itself. So, that is the human soul, which is existing as a distinct entity. Distinct means separate entity due to individualization. Right. It is an integral portion of the intelligent whole. It is an integral portion of the intelligent whole. These two words are very, very close. One is intelligent, the other one is integral. It is an integral portion of the intelligent whole. This intelligence means the godly essence, the super intelligent actually. That is the intelligence. Some people call it as great intelligence. Some people call it by name God. Some people call it by some other name, maybe Shakti or whatever. So this intelligent whole, in this individual soul is an integral part. So it is an integral part or portion of this intelligent whole. In this intelligent whole, there are so many other distinct souls which are part of that. So many divided sparks of consciousness are living in the universe. So this intelligent whole is the root of all this, and this individual soul is an integral portion. Any point of time at the end of the journey, this integral portion will have to join the intelligent whole. So this is what it means. It is an integral portion or part of the intelligent whole. Both have the common origin of one, which is the eternal ocean of light. Both have the common origin of one, which is eternal ocean of light. So we say the spark of the divine. Spark means there must be a bigger fire somewhere, bigger fire, a bigger light somewhere. So the intelligent whole or the universal soul and the individual soul both have common origin of one, which is eternal ocean of light. So this is something which we have to visualize and see. There is a huge, I'm just saying for the sake of understanding, there is a huge globe of fire, and from that, because the fire is burning, small sparks seem to be emanating from that and falling off, getting separated. Each spark like that is becoming an individual soul, and at the end of the journey of the individual soul, after developing, after evolving, developing may be a wrong word, after evolving, and at the end of the obligatory period of journey, this individual soul or integral part of that universal fire again gets back to the source. So both have the common origin of one, which is the eternal ocean of light. Right. Theosophists say there is a visible fire and an invisible fire. There is anima bruta, anima divina. This is what I believe is the statement of Theosophists as it is put in the context. Both the intelligent whole, the individual soul or integral portion of the intelligent whole, individual soul is part of the intelligent whole. Both the small one and the big one, the individual one and the whole one, both have the common origin of one, which is eternal ocean of light. So far well taken. But Theosophists, they say there is a visible fire and invisible fire. There is anima bruta, anima divina. These are the names. Visible fire, anima bruta and anima divina. The words give the meaning. Bruta is full of power. Bruta is full of power. Whereas divine thinks intelligently. So this is what is anima bruta, anima divina. D-I-V-I-N-A. It's not English, it must be a bit of Greek. Anima bruta, B-R-U-T-A, divina, D-I-V-I-N-A. So Theosophists, they say there is a visible fire and an invisible fire. So there is anima bruta, anima divina. So the words means the portion of a sentence. The words, not world, words give the meaning. Bruta is full of power, whereas divina thinks intelligently. So divina thinks intelligently, the other one is full of power. There is another group of people, which people describes as Empedocles. So Empedocles. So Empedocles is the full pronunciation. Some people call it as Empedos. You can spell the way which is convenient or pronounce the way it's convenient for you. Another group of people HVB is talking about is Empedos, who believe man and animals have two souls. This is another belief, another story of another group. HVB is now talking about another group of Empedos who believe man and animals have two souls. One is reasoning soul, the soul which reasons it, thinks about it. So one is a reasoning soul, the other is animal soul. One is an animal soul, the other one is a reasoning soul. So then, as many number of people are there, perhaps there are so many theories, because even in our own Sanatana Dharma, one man looks at one way, another man will add something to it. For example, Advaita and Vishishta Advaita. Advaita is retained at the base, but then Ramanuja added universe there, and so he called it Vishishta Advaita. There is Jivatma Paramatma. Then the third thing was added, that is universe. So that became Vishishtadvaita. So people do add their own color to it. So this is something Empidos, the group which was described by HPB. Man and animals have two souls. One is a reasoning soul. Reason means it finds logic and all that. That is the one. The other is animal soul. First one, that is the reasoning soul, comes out of the universal soul. Because universal soul is great intelligence, we considered some time back as related to us by the Greeks. The universal soul is an intelligent being. Or it's not actually a living person sitting there, we should not imagine like that. But it is intelligence personified. So personality is not sitting there, but we have to imagine it as energy which has a lot of intelligence. We can take it that way. So one is reasoning soul, the other is animal soul. The first one, the reasoning soul, comes out of the universal soul. The second one comes from within. The second one comes from within. The animal soul. Animal soul is equivalent to the astral soul, astral body. So that is the second one. So we have the physical body, the astral soul, the spiritual soul, the anima mundi, deity, divine. So these are all the divisions of what these people, Empidos, believed. So the reasoning soul and the other one is an animal soul. The first one comes from the universal soul. The second one comes from within. So the physical body is one. Astral soul or astral body is called soul because it has life after the physical body disappears. After the physical body disappears or it's removed or burnt or interned or whatever it is, the astral lives on. So it is called, because it is living, it is called a soul by the Greeks and others of that time. Physical body, the astral soul, the spiritual soul, the spirit which is always existing, eternal. The anima mundi we have discussed some time back. It is the ether, A-E-T-H-E-R, which is pervading all over the place, which is matter of very fine nature. So that is anima mundi. And then deity, divine. Deity is godly, divine also means godly. So this is deity, means a particular way of looking at that great intelligence as a deity. So they also invented this word logos, L-O-G-O-S. The Greeks, they call it L-O-G-O-S. That's also representing the universal soul or God or whatever you may call. So that is the thing. So this is the story of the second group which HPB has talked about. HPB talked about the previous group and then Alexandrian school. Now she talked about Empidos. Empidos believe man and animal have two separate souls. One is reasoning soul, the other is animal soul. First one comes from the universal soul, the second one comes from within. So according to them, the components are physical body, the astral soul, the spiritual soul, anima mundi, and deity, divine. So this is the five which this Empidos talk about. So Aristotle, she's moving to Aristotle. So Aristotle felt the supreme deity meaning God, he said that as the fifth principle. Aristotle felt the supreme deity and he called that as the fifth principle. So what are the other four? Maybe all the Greeks talked about physical body, the astral soul, and the spirit, and then anima mundi. And top of that is the deity, the fifth principle. So Aristotle also felt the supreme deity as the fifth principle. Anima mundi is composed of the fine igneous igneous. Ignite. You must have heard ignite, the word ignite, ignition. So igneous, and ethereal nature spread throughout the universe, in short, ether. So this is the anima mundi. Anima mundi is described slightly differently here. It is described as, it is composed of a fine, all right, nothing, we can't see that. But igneous means a state of lava solidifying. Lava comes out of volcano, isn't it? Lava. So when the lava gets solidified, how will it be? So that is the, that sort of a thing, also in a very fine way. That is what anima mundi is all about. Anima mundi is composed of a fine, igneous, the meaning of igneous is state of lava solidifying in such a way, at that level, it's something which we can't see. It's a fine variety of matter. And igneous and ethereal nature. Ethereal means you can't feel it, you can't touch it and things like that. Ethereal nature spread throughout the universe, in short, called ether. Ether, again, the spelling is A-E-T-H-E-R. Right. Then she's talking about another group of people, the Stoics. S-T-O-I-C-S, the Stoics. This is a group of people who believed in materialism. They believed in the theory of materialism. They are called Stoics. Stoically actually means phlegmatically, or someone who can take it very boldly. That is the actual meaning of a Stoic. She called this group, or the name perhaps given by themselves to that group, is called Stoics, who were very strong maybe in their outlook. The Stoics are a group who believed in materialism. They belong to good old days. So they perhaps were ancient. The Stoics were a group who believed in materialism. They belong to good old days. And these Stoics also said the invisible God and the divine soul, within brackets spirit. They said, the Stoics said, the invisible God and the divine soul, within brackets spirit, has no corporeal or physical visible body. Materialists, all right, they are materialists, isn't it? Materialism, they believe more in materialistic things. But even they, because they are materialists, that is why this expression, even they said the invisible God and divine soul, which is spirit, for understanding, because another phrase has been given, we are putting the meaning there within the brackets. Divine soul, within brackets spirit, has no corporeal or physical visible body. Corporeal means also body. Corpse we say, the body. When the life has gone out, we call it corpse. The corporeal or physical visible body. So, God who is invisible and spirit, they have no corporeal or physically visible body or bodies. So, some people started propagating, some commentators reviewing their way of thinking, the Stoics, the way they thought, they started propagating that Stoics do not believe in God or soul. This is what they said. Why? Because invisible God and divine soul spirit has no corporeal or physically visible body. But somebody has reduced the God into a human form or into an idol. So for him, he will not say that the God has no body. So for him, the form which is familiar to him is the idol which is standing before him. So for him, that is God. So those people, those commentators of Stoics, they said, these Stoics do not believe in God or soul is what they said. But Stoics said invisible God and divine soul has no corporeal or physically visible body. This is what they said. They didn't say God was not existing. But God, if he is existing, he has no body. That's all they said. But people who want to comment against them, because they have a feeling or they can identify with God only when they see an idol. So they said Stoics don't believe in God or soul. So this is the commentary or commentator's version or criticism of Stoics. Right. Epicurus, this name is very familiar to us. Number of times we have come across this person. Epicurus, Epicurus, Epicurus. He thought the soul is made of fine, tender essence, formed from the smoothest and roundest and finest atoms, which is actually suggesting it is sublime ether. So what does these people say? Epicurus say, Epicurus as an individual, he's saying, he thought, he will find that God or soul for that matter, both God and soul, spirit. Epicurus thought the soul is made of, the God or soul related to Stoics. Stoics do not believe in God or soul. So that's a different sentence altogether. Now we are moving on to Epicurus. Epicurus thought the soul is made of fine, tender essence, formed from the smoothest, roundest, and finest atoms, which is actually suggesting it is sublime ether. So this is what Epicurus said. Epicurus said that it is made of very tender, soft essence, formed from the smoothest and roundest and finest atoms. So the atoms chosen to form the soul are some finest variety of smoothest variety and roundest variety and the finest atoms. Then that is perhaps what he is saying, but what he is suggesting is ether is what Madam is saying, which is actually suggesting it is sublime ether. Not just AETHER, it is sublime, very fine variety, very superior variety. Sublime is superior variety. So, this is what Epicurus said. Then the Christians like Ornobius, Tertullian, Irenaeus, Origen was there. We talked about him just some time back. The Christians like Arnobius, Arnobius. I don't know. I'm only saying it because I'm pronouncing it. You may think it is something else. So I'm just giving the spelling so that you will have an idea. The Christians like Arnobius, Arnobius, Tertullian, 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 Irenaeus, Irenaeus. So Irenaeus is how it is pronounced, I'm told. Irenaeus. Arnobius, Tertullian, Irenaeus, Origen. They agreed with the observation of Spinoza. Spinoza is again another name, another philosopher who has talked about spiritualism and all that, if you remember. Sometime back we heard of Spinoza. So these Christians, the names of which we have already mentioned, they agreed with the observations of Spinoza, who said soul has corporeal body made of very fine matter. So soul has body is what Christians believed. And it agrees or it goes with the philosophy owned by Spinoza, who also said soul has corporeal body made of very fine matter. So even if it has got a body, it's such a fine variety that one cannot see it. So that is the state of that body, corporeal body made of very fine matter. So though they were Christians, they believed in this. Actually, they believe in the body resurrection, isn't it? We have talked about some time back. Christ resurrected himself using his physical body is what they believe. That is the Easter resurrection. Actually, it is the spirit which gets resurrected, or spirit perhaps which escaped from that place. But they all saw, they thought they saw the physical body of Christ escaping from the place where he was put on the cross. So that is the belief of the Christians. They've been carrying on with that belief, so we only go with them. Go with them in the sense we don't decry them. They believe, they were Christians, they believed in the body and not the spirit. But even they, these Christians, like the names we have read about, Ornibus, Tertullian, Irenaeus, Origen, they also agreed with Spinoza, who said soul has corporeal body made of very fine matter. Though they were Christians, they believed in this theory of soul having very fine body made of very fine matter. Okay. Now HVB is saying there is a doctrine, says HVB, which says, doctrine means a philosophy or a siddhanta. There is a doctrine, says HVB, which says that there is a possibility of losing one's soul. There is a possibility of losing one's soul, and so losing one's individuality. So this is what that particular doctrine is saying. What does it say? That there is a possibility of losing one's soul, and so losing one's individuality. Individualization, if they say, yes, I can understand. Individuality gets perished. Personality gets perished. This is what we have seen. But this particular group, now being quoted by HVB, it has not been named after all. There is a doctrine, says HVB, which says that there is a possibility of losing one's soul. And so losing one's individuality. So perhaps they felt when the person is gone, dead, the body is gone and the spirit also dies. Maybe that's what they meant by saying, perhaps that's what they meant, I'm saying. Possibility of losing one's soul and so losing one's individuality. Individuality goes, yes, no doubt about it. But the soul also has a death. Perhaps that's what that particular theory or doctrine talked about. This theory is not in consonance or in agreement with the ideas of spiritualists. Who are spiritualists? People who invited and who believed in not much of life after death and all that. They believed that everything moves around the nearness to the globe and all these people are existing somewhere, people who die, and they answer to the demands of the people who are living, and those dead people come and occupy someone's body and talk. That's the belief of spiritualists, right? So this theory, which was talked about by HVV, saying that there is a possibility of losing one's soul and so losing one's individuality, this theory did not go well with, it was not in consonance or in agreement with the ideas of spiritualists. Spiritualists, why they did not agree? Spiritualists believed that there is a spirit, but this spirit is something which they thought it related to a person whom they know who passed away, and so they were inviting that particular spirit. So they believed in spirit, but they were not perhaps calling the right spirit. It was not possible for calling the right spirit because the right spirit would have traveled a long distance. Some might have crossed astral, crossed lower mental, might have reached higher mental. So there is no way in which that particular spirit which has reached that stage can come back and talk to the people who are living. But nevertheless, they believe in the existence of spirit. So whereas the theory, doctrine related by HPV, it says there is a possibility of losing one's soul and losing one's individuality. So this theory did not go well with spiritualists. But Swedenborg, he is from Sweden, Swedenborg has agreed with the doctrine that losing one's soul is possible. Swedenborg, this name also we have heard a number of times. He is from Sweden. He is called Swedenborg, B-O-R-G. There was a famous Bijon Boris Borg was there, high school. He's from Swiss, I think, Swiss, yes. So this person, Swedenborg, has agreed with that doctrine that losing one's soul is possible as a result of losing individuality. Even that second thing is also possible, says Swedenborg. So the spiritualists did not agree. Swedenborg agreed with the theory, that logic, that losing one's soul is possible, and because of that, individuality also is lost, is what Swedenborg believed. Right. Then, what is the time like? 2:58. Okay. Kabbalists believe, she's moving to Kabbalists. Kabbalists believe, their doctrine also says, only when someone observes the law of harmony. This is slightly different subject. We're not talking about soul and intelligence and all that. She is now talking about Kabbalists believe, and their doctrine says, only when someone observes the law of harmony, he can obtain an individual life. Only when someone observes the law of harmony, he can obtain an individual life. A separate life, it means. A separate life as an individual. It's possible only when that particular person follows or observes the law of harmony. If there is a deviation from this law of harmony, if there is a movement away from the deviation from this harmony, which is an offshoot of the divine spirit. This law of harmony, where does it come from? It comes from the divine heart or divine spirit. So, only when the law of harmony is honored in individual life can take place is what Kabbalists believed, Jews believed. So their doctrine says, only when there is the observation or adherence to the law of harmony, the individual life is possible. So, if there is deviation from this law of harmony, which is an offshoot of the divine spirit, the more difficult it will be to regain the lost ground and take a birth. If there is a deviation from this law of harmony, which is an offshoot of the divine spirit, the more difficult it will be to regain the lost ground and take a birth. So if you have not been someone who has been following or adhering to the law of harmony, if there is a deviation from the law of harmony in the way he lived his life. So if an individual is there who did not go honor the law of harmony, so he cannot regain the lost ground. Means if he is imbalanced, he has to suffer for that imbalance, isn't it? If there is an imbalance created by him, he has to suffer the imbalance created by him. And so, it would be difficult for him to regain the ground which is lost and take a rebirth. So, this law of harmony is offshoot of the divine spirit. So, this is what Jews or Kabbalists believe. Kabbalist theory, Kabbalist Jews believed. And their doctrine says, when someone observes the law of harmony, he can obtain an individual life. And if there is a deviation from this law of harmony, which is an offshoot of divine spirit, the more difficult it will be for the individual to regain the ground lost and take a birth. So, this is the thing. What is this law of harmony? Where a person is expected to maintain the equilibrium, maintain the balance, samasthiti, as we call it. He is supposed to not cause any disturbance to the nature, equilibrium, maintain that law of uniformity. If there is something which he does which disturbs the law of uniformity or homogeneity or harmony, he has to pay a price, and he will not perhaps get that quickly a birth again unless he repairs the damage which he has done. So this is the law of harmony and the theory of the Kabbalists, of the Jews. Spiritualists. We know who is spiritualist. Persons who invite the dead spirits. Spiritualists and Christians do not believe the personality perishes, the bodies die, and this, the immortal spirit, is separate from the perishable. This is the belief of spiritualists and the Christians. We have talked about Christians a couple of times already. This is the third time we are mentioning about the Christians. Spiritualists and Christians do not believe the personality perishes. So they believe the bodies are permanent because it happened with Christ. They think everybody's body is permanent. So body's personality doesn't perish is what they say. They do not believe the personality can perish and the bodies die. So they don't believe in that. And the immortal spirit is separate from the perishable. The immortal spirit is separate from the perishable. So there are two divisions, all right, but both divisions live forever. That's the belief of the spiritualists as well as the Christians. So the followers of Swedenborg understand this. The Christians believe that there is a physical death of the body and there is another death which is death to the human element. The Christians believe that there is a physical death of the body and there is another death which is elimination or destruction of human element in man's nature, and it denies every possibility of human happiness. So this is what they believe. They say, the Christians believe that there is a physical death, all right, of the body, but there is another death which is actually elimination or destruction of human element in man's nature, and it denies every possibility of human happiness. So he would lose all the capability of being happy. So even that is getting destroyed. The capability to be happy gets destroyed, and that is second death is what the Christians believe. So the happiness goes, the human element goes, that is second death. The first death is death to the physical body. These are the two deaths which they believe in. This is the spiritual death, is what people say. If the spirit which is enjoyed so long, the residence of the human body, and the spirit is escaped, and the spirit is capable of perceiving happiness and perceiving whatever other emotions are. So when this human element is not there, the destruction has taken place, the man's nature, there is no happiness anymore. This is perhaps the spiritual death, is what the Christians talk about. This happens before dissolution of the body, when a person falls into the love of self and the love of the material world with its pleasures. Losing the love of God and of the neighbor, he falls from life into death. This is how they feel the spirit dies. The spirit dies how? They say the spiritual death happens like this, before the dissolution of the body, because the body is in the grave, right? Before the dissolution of the body, when a person falls into love of self, he loves himself more than loving his neighbor, because he did that, because he loved himself more. And he loved the material world, the happiness which is around. That material world also gets destroyed. The happiness is also gone. So when the body is still there in the grave, before the dissolution of the body, when a person falls into love of self, he loves his own self more, and love of the material world with its pleasures, losing the love of God when he is no longer a person who loves God. That is spiritual death, they say. And of the neighbor, he doesn't love his neighbor, he loves himself more. He doesn't love his neighbor. Moses said, or the 10 Commandments said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And he has stopped doing that. So that is death, according to the Christians. Losing the love of God and of the neighbor, he falls from life into death. He falls from life into death. So this is the description of the Christian personality and spirit. They believed, both the spiritualists and Christians believed, that personality will not perish. The bodies, they don't die. The immortal spirit is separate from the physical bodies, from the perishable. So they are the followers of Swedenborg. Swedenborg is another philosopher we talked about. They understand this because that means the followers also follow the philosophy or line of thinking of the Christians. The Christians believe that there is a physical death. Okay, well taken. The body dies of the body. And there is another death, which is elimination or destruction of human element in man's nature, and it denies every possibility of human happiness. So this also happens. So human element is not there in the man's nature, and it denies every possibility of human happiness. So that is one. This is the spiritual death. And further explaining, this happens before dissolution of the body, when a person falls into love of self and love of the material world. He has got tremendous love for the material world and the pleasures it gives, and he also loves himself. And losing the love of God, he has lost the love of God. He started loving himself, didn't love his neighbor, neither he loved God. So that is where he was living. And he falls from life into death. He falls from life into death. Shall we stop here? Because 309, more than an hour, I guess. We'll stop
Yes,
here.
sir. Okay, sir. Yes. Thank
Yeah.
you, sir.